knock down the biggest domino first. So I would say like, hey, I really spend 10, 15, 20 hours, whatever, a week doing X. And I would take that and explain that system or process or whatever it is that I'm doing to Claude and just have a chat with it and explain what is exactly happening and tell it that you want to automate the heck out of this thing, because there's so many things that a lot of us do that we don't realize, like, why are we doing this? Why are we spending the time doing this? It's not just the time, because it's like, what is the financial cost of that time? What's opportunity cost of other things that you could be doing where you could really be focusing? And when you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur, or even if you have a small business or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all doing things where it's like we waste so much time doing it. I would take that one, the biggest domino, and turn that into one chat session with Claude and go knock down that one domino, because that's the thing that is taking up the most of your time.
Welcome. Today on the Intentional Leadership Podcast, we have Robert Connaught. He's the Chief AIO, Chief Tech Stack guy, and we're going to talk AI today and how to implement it, what to use in your business. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Your experience is different than some of those we have out here in the world. You know, some of these people that we're looking at and watching, they have no experience whatsoever. They're AI people, or maybe they're engineers and they've dug deep into AI. You actually have business experience, life experience, and tech experience, and you're going into AI. So it's a unique perspective. And I think that I know I'm guilty of going down a rabbit hole with AI, or I have, like we just talked about offline, is we have a bunch of clients that don't even have anything beyond chat, which is what basically a search engine for them instead of Google. So I would love to talk about, what you're seeing out there and everything, but let's start with kind of where you've been.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of where things are today versus before, I'm obviously a full stack engineer. So now I consider myself an AI engineer, but as a full stack engineer, I built code, built systems, built infrastructure before AI. So it's like, it's really interesting to have built those things and understand how painstakingly long it would take me to find one bug in like thousands of different lines of codes or like hundreds of different files. But now it's like AI is like 5 seconds, literally. So it's like, it's interesting to be able to like go from, building software stacks, building platforms, and like creating code, like line by line, like no AI copy paste, like no, like, hey, go build this for me. And now, as opposed to like where it is today, it's pretty wild, like what you can do. So in terms of seeing what's happening now, it's really interesting because a lot of people, like you said, they do consider chat as like, hey, that's my AI. Well, I think chat sometimes is not really the best option, especially if you're really trying to go deep into something. I think Claude and Grok are probably the two leading ones. I think Gemini is good too, but really in terms of like all of your different like workload and everything that you can do, I think it's Claude at this point right now. Mm-hmm. Now I know Grok is working on the Grok computer, which is supposed to come out in like a few days, and they're training like a 1 million, a 5 trillion, like a 10 trillion model all at the same time. But right now Claude is leading. So really to be able to use Claude is really important. So if you've never used Claude, I would highly suggest it. But it's interesting because I was having a conversation with somebody recently, and he's not a tech person, doesn't really understand. He was like, I want to update my website or whatever. I was like, just use Claude. And he's like, oh, okay. So he went on Claude.com, or he went on the website basically, and he installed the browser extension, and it was helping him do it. And he didn't realize that there was a huge difference between just doing that and actually downloading the app. And so it's like really like little things that could really transform your work with AI that are like just little tiny little nuanced things that I think people are seeing. But yeah, it's really interesting where the entire space is heading versus like where it was before. It's wild.
Yeah, I love that. And I think so for people, I sat on the plane, I just next to somebody that has a business that's a good size and had never opened anything other than chat, and basically used it for searching like you would with Google. And that was it. And so I think let's quickly just touch on, okay, where, chat everybody knew about, talked about. Now some or most are talking Claude, but they don't realize what you just said is the nuance of Claude. And that is, are you going to open it in your browser, or are you going to download it on your computer? And then what does that look like? And then also, I've been running a test personally because I'm just curious, and I've been using, not all the time, but just once in a while, I'll use Manus, GenSpark, Grok, Copilot, Gemini, Claude, and Chat. And I'll put the exact same prompt in each one of those, and then just see what comes up. And I mentioned this the other day to a friend, but Copilot actually shocked me. Other than the fact that Microsoft spends, $100 billion, that's not shocking. So it should work, but I was blown away by the fact that even existed. So do you want to just kind of touch on why your favorites are your favorites? And obviously those could change by the time we're done talking, as fast as this is moving.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of, I think, truth-seeking AIs, obviously it's Grok, really, because Elon obviously has a very important mission in life, in seeking the truth and moving civilization towards, multiplanetary, et cetera. But that's why Grok is incredible if you really, really want the truth. So it's great in legal. So if you want to do anything, process any kind of legal documents, I would say work with Grok. If you want to do medical, I think it's excellent at medical and giving actual real advice. I think that some of the AIs right now are like steering away. I think OpenAI had something where it's like, the legal and medical was a very cloudy thing. So they're trying not to touch it. But Grok is great because like Grok will give you the truth and excellent answers in terms of anything that comes to legal, anything that comes to medical. And I would highly suggest if you have some kind of legal issue or a medical issue, use Grok for heavy. I know it's the more expensive, but if you're dealing with something really serious, I would highly suggest using that. Now, Claude is kind of like business. So it's like you want to code, you want to develop designs, you want to create presentations, you want to do anything business related, I would highly suggest Claude because it is so good. Now, there's 3 different things in Claude, and I think people kind of get confused because they just do Claude chat. It's cool to chat with Claude. You can chat with Claude. Let's say like you want to design a website, you want to build, you want to basically get some sort of business plan or some copy or whatever. But then when you actually want to go build something, there's like they just updated their little app, but there's a little thing for code. It's like it looks like a little like 2 colons next to each other or whatever. And so I would use that one. And then so you got to make sure that whatever you're doing, like you're in chat, if you're in Claude chat inside, make sure you download the app. Don't just go to claude.com, just download the app. And then it has more context on what you're doing. And then secondly, in terms of if you're going to use Claude, make sure you use Opus 4.7 now and extended thinking or the 1 million context window. It's actually adaptive thinking now with Opus 4.7, but it's transformational because a lot of people are still using Sonnet, which is like, yeah, the usage costs are a little bit less, but it's wild what Opus 4.7, 4.6 can do in terms of like tackling and solving anything. It's just insane.
So the first thing I heard, first of all, and I've done this for a while and I've been fascinated by it, but would you potentially, just for some of these people out there to save some money, would you start in chat and Sonnet just to kind of ideation and then take that information and refine it and then put it into Claude Cowork, which is the second tab, or even one step further in Claude Code tab, or you just go all in on Claude Cowork?
I've tried this. I've tried Sonnet. So if you're inside of chat, which is there's the 3. There's obviously the chat. There's the Cowork, which is basically can like control your computer and do things on your computer, like organize files. It's really cool in terms of what it can do.
It's doing that right now as we're talking. It's like, what did I touch or what did we just say that Claude Cowork has then now decided it needs to go do something? I have no idea what it's doing. All I can just see it doing something over here. I was like, what the heck's going on?
It's decided to go do something. So like, it's great for like, for example, your downloads files are like, you have like 100 download files and you're like, I need to organize it, like Claude will just go organize it, which is great. Cowork is great for those kinds of things. Anything on your computer that you wanted to do. Um, but in terms of actually going in and chatting, if you're brand new or whatever, you can use Sonnet, but it's not really the best. So I've seen like the responses are not terrific. I would just go straight to Opus 4.6 or 4.7 in chat. Yeah, like you'll start using it and you'll start being like, oh, start hitting usage limits, but it's so dang good that I would completely skip Sonnet and just go to any of the Opus models, 4.6 or 4.7. And if you really are tackling something that's like, this is a major thing, then do the extensive thinking or like the adaptive thinking, and it's really worthwhile. So start in chat, do whatever in chat. And the cool thing about AI is like, you don't know how to do something in AI, ask AI. It's like go into chat and ask it like, hey, I want to do this. I want to build a website. Do I chat with you here? And then do I take it to the code? Like it can connect to your website. It can literally do everything for you. It could connect to all databases, Notions. Now there's like really the danger of like giving it private keys and stuff. So like there are some things you need to understand as like maybe as like non-technical, but like you're going to start feeding it API keys and it's going to want to do this and want to do that. But then you also have to keep security in mind because like all these things can be compromised. Like we have no idea. So yeah.
Well, and I agree. We need to make sure we're, secure. And we have a friend and colleague that just is like, whatever. But we have age and experience on our side. But at the same time, I think we built a container and we protect our container and be wise about it. And at the same time, I think people need to realize and not be afraid, because if you give them access to your email, it's really not the end of the world. And if you can save, say, 6 hours a week because you have just now designed Claude to evaluate whether email's good, bad, ugly, you need to reply, set it up, then that's great. Put a boundary around it. But people, if they're going to attack you, if they're going to, I can't think of how many times my credit card's been compromised just in the last year. So if people want to go find something, they're going to go get it. If they're doing creepy, nefarious things, they're going to go find and dig in and get you. So protect yourself, make sure you're doing the right thing, but at the same time, don't be afraid to do some of these simple things, I don't think, because you're definitely going, you're going to, really save a bunch of time and energy too, I think. Do you agree? Or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of people are scared. Like there was that whole thing with I think it was a meta AI researcher who connected, I think it was OpenClaw. I can't remember what the story was, but like it literally went in and deleted like everything. It was like stop deleting it, and it wouldn't delete. So I think there is the danger of some extreme situation like that happening. It's of course something like that's going to hit the news, but then you don't hear about like the tens of millions of people who like had a great experience with it, right? You just hear about the one bad thing. But it's like, yeah, like you got to use your smarts, you got to use your brains, you got to just be careful and cautious of security because anything can be compromised. But like you said, guardrails around stuff, you got to learn how to talk to it and tell it certain things to like, give it only a little bit of access and not access to everything. Don't do dangerously skip permissions when you're when you're telling to Claude. So there's this thing on Claude where it's like you have to go in and you keep hitting, yes, I will allow this. Yes, I will always allow this during the session, or I will allow this one time. And then there's another way to do it where it's like dangerously skip permissions. You kind of don't want to dangerously skip permissions, even though it might be annoying to hit the like return button like 10 times during a chat session. But be careful. Just like I get, you got to kind of like sometimes use smarts. But I think if you understand that like anything can be compromised that you're speaking to AI about. So like, and then really like wrap your mind around that, then like you'll be a little bit more guarded. But in terms of like what it can do for productivity, it is just absolutely wild. I think everybody probably listening to this understands that, man, it can transform your business and your life like so quickly.
Yeah. And it is unreal what it can do. I am not a coder. Other than the 4 classes in college that I took just because I thought it was cool, and found out that I'm not the guy to sit behind a computer and do that. created a website in about 30 minutes using Claude. And it is legitimately probably a $10,000 website I didn't have to change a single thing. There wasn't a spelling error. It chose actually my favorite picture of myself, even, and well, second favorite, because I'm not holding a fishing pole or something, but it chose a professional picture, and it used my voice, or mostly my wife's. I mean, it was unreal what you can do in 30 minutes. And all I had to do was hit publish, and then it's out there in the world. I bought a URL and connected it. And I'm sure you guys could do it faster and easier than me, but this is somebody that doesn't know what he's doing and making that happen. And so I think that's an example of how simple things are. One thing you just threw out there was Claude can do, all of these things, but you threw out images and video. Can Claude do images and video, or is there a better? Yeah.
So what I actually do is, because Grok is so good at images and video, it's almost perfect. That's how I see it. So what I actually do is I give Claude my Grok API key, which I rotate after use, but I give it my Grok API key and I said, hey, go build this, but make sure any images that you create generated through Grok, here's the API key. And boom, it goes and does it. It generates the image, grabs the image, puts the image, like, you don't have to do anything. And even if you have a very professional environment, like you're using Amazon S3 for file storage and CloudFront, it understands and knows that, okay, this is a CloudFront, this is an S3 CloudFront setup. I need to put it on S3 and it gets served on CloudFront, and it just does everything for you. So, which is wild. So if you're doing any kind of image generation, go to XAI's API. It's like console.xai, I believe, and go get an API key. It's so inexpensive. So the Grok API is really inexpensive in terms of like relation to every other basically AI. And it's so good at images and videos. I would not use anything else. So anytime I do that, I say, hey, go work with Grok and generate images and videos, and it understands.
Wow, that's unreal.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do that afterwards. I'm going to create a thumbnail using that system. And for an API key, for those that don't know, it's just you're allowing Claude to talk to Grok, and Grok is another LLM, just like Claude or Chat for those out there. So
you allow it to connect directly to it and work directly with it. And to do that, you just generate something called an API key. It's a connection key to a different platform. And I think probably some of the people who are listening to this, or a majority, or maybe a minority of the people listening to this, use Notion. And Notion is a cool platform. Like you could track tasks, projects, you can, create overviews, you could write stuff, you could collaborate with team. The cool thing about also Claude is you can give it your Notion key, and you can set up, for example, if you have tasks, you can say, go set up a table of tasks. This is everything that I need to do. Like, for example, you and I, maybe we went on like a business conference or a phone conference call together, and the whole thing was recorded, and you feed it to Claude and you say, hey, here's the whole transcript. Go and create items, tasks that need to be done, when they need to be completed by, who needs to complete them. And it literally goes and organizes everything for you. And then it'll go and do the tasks for you. And then it'll mark it as complete. So yeah, try that. It's wild.
So tell us a story so that people can hear kind of somebody that didn't think, oh, I can't do this. My business is too complicated, or I don't know enough about tech, so this isn't for me. Or third, I guess, maybe, and maybe I'm adding too many here, but my business is too complicated. I don't know enough about tech, and my business is about the physical work, and it's not some professional services or something that you've jumped in and just saved time and energy in what you've done there.
I think first and foremost that anybody who thinks their business is too complicated for AI, it's not correct, because like AI can literally understand and solve almost everything at this point. Probably in the next year or two, unfortunately, it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs of people who think that maybe their jobs are safe or whatever. So, in terms of people who might think that things are too complicated, their business is too complicated, there's too many moving parts or pieces or whatever, I would say, and yes, I have come across this with a lot of people, and a lot of people are absolutely shocked on what AI can do in such a short amount of time. But I would just actually, instead of talking about that, just say a recommendation of what somebody could do to use AI for the first time is literally take out your phone and start recording what happens in conversations in, for example, if you in a meeting or whatever, start recording what happens in your business. And then take that recording and feed it to AI and say, this is my business. This is a day in the life of my business. This is a meeting we had or a conversation I had with an employee or an executive or whatever. And then go and look at the insights that, for example, Claude can create around what you just fed it. And then go ask it, hey, my business is doing XYZ. I wanted to do this. For example, my business is doing 10 million. I wanted to do 100 million. What is standing in the way? But the more context you feed it, the better. So record all your conversations. Like literally, you can feed it hundreds of conversations and it has context and it has understanding. And I would take that and be like, okay, let me just feed all the conversations to you. Let me know what you think. And you will be absolutely shocked by what it says, what you can do, like even going down to the nuance levels and stuff like that. But I think a lot of the people right now who are not using AI are probably afraid for a lot of different reasons. But there's one really important thing, like we talked about the privacy stuff, is really you have to be careful if you're like in the medical field or you're in the legal field or you're in, you could be in the accounting field or whatever. You don't want personally identifying information to be leaked through AI. So a lot of what is happening to combat that is like there are people who are coming in and installing their own servers in these businesses, like little LLMs. Like they're not as powerful as like Grok or Claude or whatever, but they come in and they process the documents and everything first locally. And there are ways that you use to scrape out personally identifying information before it's pushed out. So it's like these kind of things are important for HIPAA, for finance, for accounting. Like you don't want to leak, tax returns. Like you just don't want all this stuff out there. So I think in terms of that, like that's really, really important to address. And you have to be really careful. So there are ways to combat all these things. And you don't have to like even come to listen to a conversation like we're having right now. Just like ask AI, like, hey, like I have tax returns or whatever with like people's information on it. Like, how can I make sure that you don't get that information? And so Grok will probably give you the best answer for something like that.
Right. Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense. So since this is the world of everybody owns a Mac Mini or is wanting to, it seems like, can you do that on any? I mean, would you go out and buy a new Mac Mini laptop, PC of some sort to do that in the business itself, or could you do it on your, already in your structure?
A lot of people think Mac Minis. I just think like servers. So, I mean, it's great to like have a Mac Mini and have it in your office or whatever, but like, you could set up your own server that is literally only yours in the cloud that only you control. It doesn't access. So where I set everything up is in AWS. So some people like Azure. I just like AWS. Everything I build is inside of AWS. So like you can block everything off through what's called virtual private clouds, VPCs. So it only has access to certain pieces of information, right? And so that is a way to like organize things that actually communicate with LLMs or not. And that's also where you can install your own LLM, like you call it locally, but it's on your server. But that server is your server. Like you provisioned it, you created it, everything on there is yours. So it's like I would maybe if you're not very technical, you're not going to go and set up an AWS server because it is kind of like a little bit technically challenging, but you can use like Grok or Claude to walk you through doing it. So you don't have to go out and buy a Mac Mini. I have a friend who went out and bought a Mac Mini and then later on said, I wish I didn't buy that because at the same time they bought the Mac Mini, I just provisioned a server on AWS for like probably a tenth of the cost. And so it's cool what you can do. You don't need to go buy your own little servers and put them in your office. You can if you want to. But yeah, that's how I look at it.
That's a great way to look at it. And, one more layer of security because it's going to, if you've got AWS, they're going to have a far better security system than what you can create on your own. And
Yeah.
two, for lack of fear of the fire or theft, somebody coming into your building, they can't walk away with it. So I think those are two. Having it at home might be fun, but other than that, I think you're right. AWS is.
Having it at home is fun. You can set up OpenClaw on that, but you can also set up OpenClaw on the cloud, of course.
Right.
It's just, there are some challenges with having OpenClaw on like your computer where it has access to everything. I mean, that's one thing connecting, Claude through a browser extension to see certain things, and just another thing of like literally having it sit in your computer and have access to everything. Some people, they might want to take that risk, but yeah.
I think we need to clarify too, because right now we're talking about, excuse me, about 4 or 5 different things. And when you said OpenClaw, people are like, well, then I don't want Claude. It's like, well, first of all, they're separate, totally separate. And that's important to know. And then second, that's the next level. And when I mean next level, that isn't, hey, I'm using chat for Google. Oh, I'm going to go over to Claude and use Claude Cowork or Claude Code. It is, I'm already using Claude Code and I'm going to go next level and I'm going to be using OpenClaw. I think that that's a pretty important distinction. And then with that, a funny story there, and there's a couple of them, right? But a friend of ours, mine, actually, he told me he was going to do it. And I said, don't go do it. Don't go do it. He's like, man, oh yeah, that's probably a good idea. So instead, he thought it was bright to go grab his old laptop because he hasn't used it in 2 years. He uses his new laptop. He puts OpenClaw on that. OpenClaw, not Claude, OpenClaw decides to think for itself, and it sent every person on his laptop, 2 years old, a text and an email based on what it thought the reply should be and whether it should be replied to and everything else. And then all of a sudden his personal phone blows up with all of these things of, hey, and he's sarcastic. So he was sending random 2-year-old texts and emails to who knows who that were sarcastic and funny and in some cases inappropriate almost to people. And he had to go in and just quickly shut it down and close it. So,
holy smokes.
So you have to be careful. If you think, if you're going to do it right, is why I share that story. Because he thought, oh, it's my old computer. Well, he didn't delete anything off the old computer. Had he wiped it clean and then done that, he may have gotten away with it.
Probably would have been better. I think OpenClaw, yeah, that's an important distinction. OpenClaw is like a little framework. OpenClaw could connect to a lot of different, LLMs. Like it can connect to Grok, it can connect to Claude or whatever. But yes, it can certainly have a mind of its own and, take certain actions on its own. When you configure OpenClaw, you're kind of on like configuring your personality, which is like you can do this in Claude and stuff too. But it's designed to be where it's like you configure the personality of this thing and you tell it what your goals are. And so, yeah, it can go and do things and you can just be like, why did you do that?
Yeah, right. It's like, yeah. I said, well, it's obvious that OpenClaw thinks this is who you are. It has determined that, if you think you know who you are, just go put OpenClaw on your personal laptop. It'll tell you who you are. And then you may not like that person. So I think, for this though, let's, you have experience and wisdom that most don't by starting and building and writing code and then moving over to being an AI. And for this conversation, let's, okay, it's best, let's use Claude because that's the best workplace right now. And don't be afraid, tie in some APIs, monitor what's doing. What would be easy, low-hanging fruit for people to go, and if they spent some time or hired someone like you, what would be some simple things they could do to save 2 hours, 6 hours, 40 hours a week or a month? What does that look like?
Yeah, I would do like knock down the biggest domino first. So I would say like, hey, I really spend 10, 15, 20 hours, whatever, a week doing X. And I would take that and explain that system or process or whatever it is that I'm doing to Claude and just have a chat with it and explain what is exactly happening and tell it that you want to automate the heck out of this thing because there's so many things that a lot of us do that we don't realize like why are we doing this? Why are we spending the time doing this? And it's like it costs, it's not just the time because it's like what is the financial cost of that time? What's opportunity cost of other things that you could be doing where you could really be focusing? And when you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur, or even if you have a small business or whatever, it doesn't matter. We're all doing things where it's like we waste so much time doing it. And we might not like realize we're just stuck in the habit of doing it. I would take that one, the biggest domino, and turn that into one chat session with Claude and go knock down that chat session and go knock down that one domino because that's the thing that is taking up the most of your time. Then go to the next thing that's taking up the most amount of your time. And you're going to ask it like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is where I'm spending my time. How can I automate this? What system process can I implement? You describe all the little tools that you're using. You're using Slack, you have a website, you have whatever, and you just describe it and say like, I want to automate this. How can I automate this? And then I think you'll be like pleasantly surprised about what it can do, and then it'll give you an action plan that you can actually go implement. So if it's some code-based thing or whatever, it'll tell you go to Claude Code, or maybe you use Cowork to do it or whatever. But knock down the biggest domino. After you do that, knock down the second biggest domino, and then look for ways you can knock down dominoes for your executive team or your development team, your sales team, whatever it is, right? Implement AI receptionists, implement whatever. Like, what is taking up the most amount of your time? Like, are you getting tons of calls that are like bogging you down, or are you dealing with like minutia, or what is it? And go do that. And I think that'll transform anybody's business.
Yeah, one example that I can share is when you said phone, person has 10,000 phone calls a month coming in, and not only was it bogging down the team, the clients weren't thrilled. The team that had to take care of it wasn't thrilled. I mean, no, it impacted four different pieces of their business negatively, from the client experience all the way down to the employee experience. And with that automation that you built, what you reduced, uh, almost half, or not quite half?
Yeah, so it's interesting because out of 10,000 phone calls that client gets a month, 30% are maintenance related. And a lot of the phone calls are literally repetitive, redundant, just people calling to check on status of stuff. And so the way that we knock that out is obviously building an AI receptionist that can connect to systems, right? So it has immediate and instant access to data. So some of this might be a little bit beyond what non-technical people can do, but it's really, if you really are committed to solving something like this, you can build your own AI voice agent, and basically it's a phone number people call and it connects to your business. And I think just an AI voice agent, either for inbound or outbound, right, can transform a business. Because yeah, you can take literally all of these phone calls, thousands and thousands of phone calls, to really understand them carefully and know what to do. And then when it's a situation, you can instruct it, hey, I want you to transfer people out when this happens. And a lot of this you can build and create just by talking to AI. Like you have to understand some of the moving parts and pieces, but it's not rocket science whatsoever. So yeah, so these kinds of things can transform a business, 100%.
And when you say talk to I want to clarify, you mean physically talking, because I think people out there are going, what do you mean talk to AI? I'm just going to, I think that in their brain, they're going, I'm going to type in here. I got to do all that. No, you're going to get Whisper Flow, Aqua Flow. Those are my two favorites. I'm especially a Whisper Flow guy just because it knows my voice now, which is creepy, crazy, and amazing. But I physically can talk to my computer while I'm
Yep,
sitting here and tell it what I wanted to do. And then I just hit enter. I just wish I could
exactly.
say enter and then it would do it. That's one thing that I'm literally, but that's my annoyance of it now. It's so
Yeah,
convenient. Now I'm upset I have to hit enter.
it's wild. Like yeah, when I say talk to I mean turn on your mic and start talking to it. And for example, I have Grok on my phone, obviously, and so one cool thing with Grok, when you hit speak, you can speak to Grok, but then you could turn on your video. So it's like you could start showing it something like it could be anything. It could be literally my toilet's not flushing, or like my sink is leaking, or like whatever. Something is not working in my house. My computer won't turn on. You point the camera at it and you literally talk to it and it solves it for you. And I think things like that, people just don't realize like, hey, like you can do this with AI, which is wild. Like turn on your turn on your camera. Like, hey, my son is playing soccer. Like watch him play soccer. What is he doing wrong? Like it will blow your mind what it can do. Like it's wild.
Yeah,
Talk to AI.
I think
Just
it's
talk to
fun.
it. Yeah.
I think it's exciting.
It's
We're
fun.
living in a great age. We need to embrace it and we need to be
Yeah.
positive with it. Are there going to be challenges along the way? 100%. But we're here. The horse is out of the stable, baby, and you may as well try and figure out how to catch up and or stay on board. And so I think that that's fun. You had also mentioned, and one thing which I want to get your thought on is, I own a HVAC company, a plumbing company, or I own an accounting firm, whatever it might be. You have sales, marketing, you have operations, you have accounts payable, accounts receivable, you have your C-suite executive team, you have these different units of your business. And what are you seeing? What's a best practice out there so that they're implementing it across the board and making it work?
I think so. I think there's one of the reasons maybe some people don't want to do it is because they still want to know what's going on in their business. And maybe they think like if they implement AI, it'll make mistakes. So there's one really important distinction that I want to talk about is called human in the loop. Human in the loop is basically don't you can do stuff, AI can do stuff, it could queue stuff up, get it ready for me, but human in the loop, meaning like, okay, I want to give it a final sign off. So setting up systems, I think a lot of people start with human in the loop. Any firm, outbound or inbound, should start with human in the loop, where it's like, go do all this cool stuff, automate everything, but then give me a digest or let me know what's going on so I can give you a final sign off, click a button or whatever it is, build a dashboard with a button that you have to click. And then go to more fully automated systems. I'm certainly a fan of fully automating everything and then having a God view. So basically building a dashboard where I can see everything that's happening in real time and watch it. But for more sensitive, maybe fields or people who, maybe they want to like have more control over what's going on or they don't want to give up control, then do human in the loop. So the people who are really successful always start with the human in the loop and then they transition to like, okay, let me remove the human in the loop for these situations or whatever. And then it's like, eventually there's not going to be any more human in the loop. You're just going to go tell it to do things and it'll do it and it'll do one shot it perfectly, but not all the time. So, but in the future, most certainly.
Yeah, I like that, a human in the loop. And excuse me, I also think of it as like a 10, 80, 10, kind of a different Pareto theory, where 10% of the time it's the human and you're making it happen. And I stole this from somebody, so it's not exactly my idea, but I'm using it daily. And then I let AI go do 80% of the heavy lifting. And then I stop it, or it stops, and I have it then prompt me to say, okay, now what do you want me to do? Do you want me to send the email? Do you want me to do this? Or I have to edit it, or whatever that case may be. So I think that's a way of thinking about it for these people is 10, 80, 10, where you're a human in the loop. You're the human in the beginning and you're in the end, and you have that control.
Yep, human in the loop. And I think that's an important distinction. Maybe people don't understand, like they can actually instruct AI to put a human in the loop. Like, hey, like I want sign off.
Yeah. Like you, I have a client that has a dashboard that he built through AI because he didn't do anything. He just asked. He started building agents and different, we'll call them, I like to call them AI employees essentially, but he built a half a dozen AI employees. And then he has his AI employee list and he has tasks that they're all associated with. And his dashboard pops up when they're done working on them. and he can go and make sure they're doing it. If they're not doing their job, just kind of like you monitoring somebody, he can click take action or tell it to go do it. Or most of those times and most of those instances are actually because he didn't do it right and set it up. But then he knows what he taught correctly or not. And then the other thing I want to add to this, and I don't know if you've seen some best practices, but one best practice I've seen, and there could be others, but I have a friend who had 70 employees, and he wants AI to help solve some problems in the company. He is all in and trying to figure it out. But he also knows that he doesn't want it to be top down, and he doesn't want the employees to fear that they're going to lose their job. He wants them to use it as a tool to make them do their job better. And every Friday, he now has Friday from 12 to 5. The teams get together and they ideate, they create, they come up with ideas. They just brainstorm, and then they figure out, what is it that we want to do? What are our bottlenecks? What are our challenges? What if, and they come up with these dream lists of what could happen. And then they do that. And then now they've been doing it for a while. Then they sit down and figure out how to do it as a team collectively. And they tweak it. And they've been able to, instead of hire new employees, they only hire A+ new employees. Before they wanted to fill the void, they wanted to fill the gap of an employee. And now, because their team is bought in and they know their job is secure, then they're going out. Now, does that mean some of the B employees may not be there anymore? For sure. They're able to be more selective. So I guess that's a long question too. Have you seen best practices, how groups are incorporating it in their business?
No. Oh, in terms of the best practices that people are using. I think, like I said, human in the loop is a big one, but when it comes to figuring out using AI for anything in business, I think it's really setting up a proper workflow to be able to build something that is going to help you intelligently scale and accomplish something in your business, like if it's outbound or if it's inbound or whatever it is. And I think all the things that we talked about with security are really, really important. So I think rotating API keys, anytime you give AI access to anything, and that task is completed, for example, rotate the API key, please. Do not leave API keys open-ended. Or when you create an API key, sometimes you could put expiration, like 1 day, 2 days, 7 days, whatever it is. Like, don't just leave them like never expiring. So I think these kinds of things are really important. A lot of the stuff that we talked about are critical. For example, if your business is in medical or it's in legal or it's in financial, being very careful to scrape personally identifying information, PII, from documents before you send it to an LLM, because your company can get in a lot of trouble legally or whatever if some certain things are exposed, or if somebody's identity is stolen, or these LLMs get hacked. So you got to be careful. There are scraping systems that can scrape personally identifying information before they leave your computer, but I think you have to be really careful on like what you expose in terms of like clients and customers that are sensitive information. So those things are really, really important. But then when it comes to, for example, outbound or inbound, a lot of people listening to this probably right now like have sales teams or marketing teams. They're either doing a lot of outreach or they're dealing with stuff that's coming in that's inbound. So building an intelligence system that communicates and connects directly to whatever database or system that you're using is probably the most important thing, and allowing the AI to communicate with you on what's going on, like on a daily basis, like kind of like a human in the loop, but it's like it's keeping in touch with you. Like, for example, like I'll have it email me or like text me or whatever, certain things when I know an alert happens. Like I want to for sure know when a certain thing happens, like it alerts me, so that I'm kind of like kept in the loop, but I'm not like a human in the loop. So I'm not really the bottleneck, but I'm still made aware of a situation when it happens. so that I still know, like, okay, this situation happened and this was the result. This is what AI did. This is how it solved it. But then I can then later on go in and like instruct it a little bit further to do whatever. So,
Yeah, and that's just like having your own employee. You
yeah.
bring on an employee, you onboard your employee, and they
Yep.
do something great. You let them know. They do something wrong, then you can potentially correct them, or you were not clear. I one of the things I mentioned yesterday is somebody was asking me what I thought was the biggest one of the biggest challenges. I think the English language right now. I think kids, people, adults even, I guess, but we forget communication skills and don't have them. And we need to not only have great communication skills or keep them present for ourselves just for human interaction, but also Claude uses that voice. And if you're not clear, it has a hard time interpreting it. So, the taking an English class and a speaking class is, maybe don't go to college if you don't want to, but go take a writing course for a year and take a public speaking course for a year, because you'll be able to interact with Claude even better. Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, and I think in terms of kids, like I have a 10-year-old and 11-year old who are in school. Um, and I tell my wife all the time, I'm not even sure they should stay in school anymore. And she thinks that this is a wild thing because she doesn't understand where AI is going. And literally, it's going to eliminate so many jobs, goods and services. Like Elon Musk says all the time, goods and services are literally going to be almost free because of AI. So once the robots come out, which are, AI enabled, I think it's going to be wild times. So it's like, that is a whole other subject that's like, what do you do with your kids? But certainly teach them how to use AI. It's like it shouldn't be like when we were like going to, it's like the calculator. Oh, don't use the calculator. It's like they should be enabled to use AI. Your employees, you should enable them to use AI because it's like it's not really that you're going to eliminate those jobs. You're going to just free them up to do more things that are going to grow the business. So it's really some like obviously cultural conversation that's going on right now. But yeah, don't be afraid of using AI.
Yeah, that culture conversation is going deep. We just had that the day before yesterday, and some way smarter brains in the room and in the world were on that, and it was mind blowing what could happen. Well, heck, just this morning while we're talking, the Chinese robot ran the fastest half marathon in history.
I saw that. Yeah.
Like
And it
ran
collapsed
it
though,
like a
like only a
human.
few. Yeah,
It was, yeah. I mean, that's where we're
crazy.
at. It's
That's where we're
wild.
at.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Optimus
so
is starting production too. So it's like he stopped the Model X and Model S production to start the robot production. So if you think about, he's going to do 10,000 robots this year, and probably he'll go 10x that every year, 100,000 next year. If you just think about these Optimus robots that are going to be around, and they're going to be powered by Grok and literally going to be around to do anything that you want to do. So imagine just hiring, or I mean, just buying an Optimus robot. It'll maybe cost you 30,000, 50,000, whatever it is. But then it's like, it will do anything. There's no more like, okay, I want Claude to do, it's all digital right now, right? But it's like, you have a physical pair of hands that is going to do anything that you want. Think 1 to 2 years from right now. It's going to be wild to think about what's going to happen.
we just went to a hotel and they have a spa. The spa has all sorts of the latest gadgets, which I really enjoyed going and using. One of the gadgets that was booked because I didn't even know it existed until I only had like an hour before I had to leave. And I was like, I don't care. Just give me a 4 minute. They have a robot masseuse. They have three of them, or two of them, two robot masseuses. They were having hiring problems,
Wow.
and they couldn't find people to give a massage. And then, of course, they had this, and they're in a, it's in Seattle, so tech is cool, part of the integration of it, and they're forward thinking. So they had, and I want to try it. But you think about that. If I don't have to mow my lawn and I, can get a massage, how cool is that? But
It could
um,
take your kids to school. It can go cook
yeah,
your lunch, like go pick up your lunch. I mean, it's wild.
yeah. I blew my grandkids away on last couple weeks ago, I guess, and I put them in a Waymo, and they had never even seen one. And now this car shows up and says, "Get in, kids." There's no driver. That's where we're at, and that's so much
Wow.
safer than you or me driving. We're distracted. I mean, like you say, that's another cultural type. Off the rails a little bit.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
that would be a fun conversation to have. But so we're talking about the basic tech stack. What would you say are, kind of the non-negotiable? Because if you just go out and get Grok and Claude, without whisper flow, let's say, you're almost missing a piece of it. And if you don't have Notion, which a lot of people may or may not even know what that is, it's amazing. Or Airtable, or some of these things that can do so much for you. What would you tell people? Okay, these are the non-negotiables, and then these would be nice to haves.
Yeah, in terms of like AI tech stack, I would 100% focus solely on things like Grok and Claude. You can use also Notebook LLM for just putting together a bunch of different concepts that you want to learn and turning into a podcast, or even like breaking down complex things. But I would primarily 100%, if you don't have a Claude and a Grok account, go create those accounts. And then with Grok, you can't download a separate console, but with Claude, you can. Do not use Claude without downloading that separate standalone app, your Mac or your Windows or whatever, and use those. Now, in terms of like what you do, your tech stack, everybody has something different. So, I mean, they could have their website in AWS, they could have Bluehost or whatever. It doesn't matter. They could be using a CRM. So most companies use CRMs. Pasari in the desk services, for example, or Lead Simple and all these other platforms that people use. They're like big tech platforms, Salesforce, that people connect to. It's like talk to AI and make sure it can connect to whatever tech stacks that you use daily. For example, Slack, like you said, Slack, Airtable, Notion, connect to all of those things and then go do everything. So it's like, why would you go through manually update everything in a meeting or whatever? Just record the conversation and then give it to AI and say, hey, go update Slack, go assign all the tasks to the people who are assigned. Like connect it to the existing things that you use, but the absolute non-negotiables, 100% I would use Claude and Grok, and make sure you also get Claude and Grok API keys. So it's kind of separate in just using Claude and Grok daily and then getting an API key from Claude and Grok. It's like in a separate section or whatever that you have to go. It's like usually console.anthropic.com or whatever. And then you go and you create the API keys and then make sure that it can connect to every part of your business system that's not like critical, basically. Like, oh, you don't want it to like see this information or whatever, but connect to every business system and then go do all the things. So everybody is using something completely different, but I mean, obviously I would 100% use those tools, and then make sure it's on your phone too, so that if you have a passing thought or idea or whatever, record it directly into a session where you're using to record those things. And it builds history. It creates context. It understands you better and better as time goes on. It's like it really has an understanding of your business. If you're trying to lose weight, it doesn't really matter what you're doing. This is not just business. It could be in anything, like literally weight loss. Track, like if you have a smart scale, upload a screenshot of your progress every single day. Talk to it. It can coach you. It's wild. So that's how I would say to approach this, because everybody has some different kind of setup. A lot of people are using these platforms online, like CRMs that are like Salesforce and these kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure it can connect to it.
Yeah. And there's, like you say, Salesforce, DHL, whatever program CRM you're using.
Yep.
And there's an API key for everything.
There's an API key for everything. Yep.
And if there isn't, then you probably don't want to be using it.
And in a lot of these platforms, when you create the API key, sometimes you can do what's called scope. So a scope is like the API has only access to read customer data or write customer data or whatever it is, create orders or tasks. You can assign it whatever scope you want to have access to, and then the AI will only have access to that.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's another layer of security essentially. And When I was doing it, the first time I did the scope, it wasn't able to do the work that I wanted it to do.
Mm.
I was like, why isn't it doing it? And then it's like, I got to figure this out. So what did I do? I wanted to call you. I didn't. Um, I went into Claude and I said, hey, buddy, why can't you do this for me? Well, what do you mean? I said, I asked you to do this. You're not doing it. I connected you to Google Drive or whatever it was. Why aren't you doing this work? Well, I'm not allowed to. Well, why aren't you allowed to? Well, because you didn't give me the scope. You didn't click the toggle button, da, 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 da. And I was like, what? How do I do that? And so in a 60-second conversation with my buddy Claude, I was able to go quickly to, like you said, console.entropic.com.
Yeah.
And I found the one specific, thing that I wanted to connect to. And then I looked down and it was like, sure enough, I can't read or write on this thing. I know, because it defaulted to that. So I think that's great. And are you just talking directly using your computer now then, and not even using something else?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll talk to it a lot of the time. I type pretty quickly. So sometimes I just want to type it and type it out and then not talk to it. But most of the time I'm just talking to it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then
Whisperflow is great for that, obviously, which you mentioned. There's tons of different, I mean, you can use whatever you want. It's just like, ask AI, hey, how can I set it up so I can talk to you? And it'll tell you like the top 3 to 5 things that you can do so that you can enable your mic on your laptop or whatever to talk to it. So, yeah,
my stepdad was in tech back way back, like before we even had that word as a, in our thing. And he had a thing, and I can't remember what it was called. You might remember, because it was called like Dragon Voice or something. Do you remember Dragon
no,
something? It was like in the mid 80s. It came, late 80s probably, I guess. Yeah, it was in the late 80s, and it was one of the very first voice to text, and he was so excited and he used it all the time. And I look at how cumbersome it was at the time, but it was easier than typing. And now it's unreal. But so I think that it's amazing what you can do. So if let me see, so what's possible? What's a dream? Give a couple of ideas of dreams that you've made come true through AI for a business. Is there something like that?
So yeah, in terms of like, first of all, what's possible, I think pretty much anything is possible with AI at this point in time. Like the cool thing is you can build any kind of business or grow any kind of business or manage the business or figure out how to sell your business and exit the business with AI, which is pretty wild because, explaining your goals or whatever to AI, I think is something that maybe like not a lot of people are doing. Maybe they're not telling the AI, hey, I have these goals, or maybe they don't even have goals in the first place. So it's like, what you could do with AI, and I think what I would recommend you could do with AI is literally set goals. So if it's for your business goal or your personal goal or whatever, I would say just set those goals and then feed it to AI. And obviously whatever you track, is going to grow, right? So it's like, if you're tracking it daily, like using AI to do that. But in terms of like, what I recently did was like, I created a telehealth platform, which is literally completely automated. So I got inspired by, I don't know if you heard the story of Medvi, which is this guy who created a telehealth platform, a single platform. So, there was a whole thing. One guy's going to create $1 billion business with AI. And I think his name is Matthew Gallagher. And he created a company called Medvi. And Medvi is a telehealth platform. But as I dug into it, I started asking AI, like, hey, how did he do it? Did he create his own, like, it sells like GLP-1s and these kinds of things. Did he create his own telehealth platform? And then AI started giving me every single thing that he used to create the telehealth platform. So I was like, literally in a weekend, I built an automated telehealth business. And then the website it created is so astounding that when I started to email all the telehealth platforms and the compounding pharmacies, they are literally trying to clamor to like get on a call just because it's like, it looks so professional. So this is not something that like it's not like you can't do this yourself. It's like Matthew Gallagher was one guy who created a business generating, I think he's generating $3 million a day in that business with one person running the business. So by creating an AI voice receptionist to handle inbound, connecting to telehealth platforms, compounding pharmacies, everything is getting fulfilled and done automatically. So that really inspired me in terms of like, hey, like you could go build $1 billion business as one person. So my goal is obviously to build a $1 billion business as well, which would be phenomenal. But like using AI to do that, I think that's the thing that's really extraordinary. And people don't understand that you can create a big business with like just one or two people, which is wild.
Mm-hmm. That is incredible. Yeah. And he found something that is highly, everybody's talking about it too, right? So he
Yes.
jumped on two bandwagons there, which is brilliant. AI
Yeah.
and GLP-1s. I mean,
GLP-1s.
if you're going to do something, connect the dots, right? And he did that. So I think that's
It's
brilliant for
wild.
him. Is there an industry that you think has that really can't do anything with AI yet, or is limited? I mean, you mentioned HIPAA laws and other financial informations, but is there
I think
something that can't?
medical, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
probably. I think the most kind of like handcuffed is probably the medical industry just because of HIPAA stuff. But you know, building that telehealth platform, I really learned a lot about how you can implement BAAs and stuff like that. I learned like, do you use Cloudflare for certain things and like not Cloudflare? Amazon has its own BAAs. And so I think medical is really kind of handcuffed with AI, but I mean, they still can do a lot of stuff. But if I'm looking at like any fields, I just think about, medical really has it hard with AI. You just have to structure the AI carefully, like what
Mm-hmm.
does it connect to, what does it have access to, or whatever. Um, when I was at a Maha event not too long ago in DC, and JD Vance was there and everything, and there was a bunch of speakers, and there was one I can't remember the name of the company, but they built like the largest. Um, it's like it's for healthcare, specifically for patient information, and it's a AI receptionist, or like it's an AI bot that processes inbound and outbound. And I still remember the conversation that he had because a lot of these things are sometimes delusional, they don't work properly or whatever, they give incorrect information. Now in medical HIPAA, whatever, it's really dangerous. Also legal and stuff to give incorrect information. But the way that this was built from like, if you just think about this just contextually speaking, it's like an AI within an AI within an AI. So it's like it has to take the information that you feed it, and then it goes and it checks with the second layer, and then the third layer checks before giving the response back. So I think that's a really interesting way to think about things because they built like this massive business around being able to do outbound in telehealth and inbound. Um, and this is a completely different company that's just handling, healthcare related inbound, outbound calls, and they built this massive business just by having this like multi-layered approach. So it's technically speaking, it's a challenge to implement. It's like, having an AI receive information and then confirm with another AI and then confirm with another AI. It's like, it's kind of crazy to think about it. But these are the kinds of things that like people are building. I think nothing is really off the table. It's just in terms of like, what are you willing to like talk to AI and figure out about? I mean, you can figure anything out. There's really like nothing that is a challenge that you can't overcome.
No, I think that's fascinating, and if you really think about it, it's kind of like back in the old days when the worst thing you could do is leave your password on your computer screen. Yeah, don't put it in your drawer, and that was a layer of security, right? Is that
Yep.
please memorize it, and if you go into a medical office, there would be passwords laying around, which you would have to get into the medical office. You'd have to find it. You'd have to find the right. I mean, you have to log in. I mean, there's so many layers of security there that doing the exact same thing only virtually.
Yep.
That's the cool part is that you've created the same layers, like you just mentioned, 3 different layers. It's just instead of having a door, a receptionist, a doctor, and a nurse, or a nurse and then the doctor potentially, then that's it. So yeah. Um, Anything that what are you the most excited about that's coming up before we wrap this up for you?
I think the Grok computer stuff. So I think, obviously, Grok is like really far behind because they started, not that long ago. I think it's like half the shelf life of Anthropic. But they're about to release Grok Computer, and they're training a bunch of different models. One is going to be a 10 trillion model, which basically is the number of parameters, which might not mean anything to a lot of people. But basically, I think a system like this can really rival Claude. And he's training all these systems like in parallel, which is kind of wild to think that he's training a 1 trillion, 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion, 5 trillion, and 10 trillion model or whatever it was, all at the same time at Colossus 2. So I think I'm most excited about the Grok stuff because I love Grok just because of like the truth seeking and like how accurate it is for certain things that a lot of AIs don't want to touch right now. And so I'm excited about that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that was when I heard about that, I was like, whoa, because you don't want to bet against somebody that is one of the most, whether you like him or not, he's one of the most driven, smartest entrepreneurs in history.
Yeah.
And he has one mission that people forget, and that is to make humankind better, safer, and can live forever. I mean, he actually has a deeper mission that people forget because everybody wants to throw targets at super smart. So I would not bet against him just because he happened to, stumble out of the gate. He's up and he's going to be around in the first turn and not be too far behind. The other one, I have a question for you that reminded me. The one that is making me wonder is talk about a sleeper, and maybe they're not really, maybe they're behind, because they do things differently. What about Apple? Where do they fit in this whole world?
I'm not sure what's going on with Apple. I'm sure a lot of people know that Siri, this is challenging to speak to Siri or get any information, but I think that they're connecting to other LLMs now, or they're going to connect to chat or whatever it is. And I mean, that's a good move. And if they can't sort it out, but I wouldn't count them out because you don't know what they're working on. Who the heck knows? I mean, we're using Apple devices. I think it's like 1.3 billion people have Apple devices. So it's like, who knows? I mean, they could come out with something that's phenomenal, but it's wild to think what some of these AI labs have built in a very short amount of time. So,
right. Yeah. And I don't understand it yet. That's one of the conversations I want to have with you offline is GitHub. But, our mutual friends like, Graham, go to GitHub and get this. I'm like, I'm looking at GitHub going, I don't even know what to get when I'm here other than I got GitHub. and so, but what was cool is what people are working on.
Yeah.
That was what was mind blowing. And so, but
there's some wild repositories out there of like skills and things that, you could feed to AI to, give it sort of different capabilities. I mean, there's wild things happening, but GitHub it's cool.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. How do people get a hold of you? They can reach out to you. What's the best way?
They can just email me at robert@chiefaio.io. If you need some help, need some advice, whatever, just shoot me an email.
That's awesome. And I'll include that in the show notes so that people can get to your link. I have it pulled up here and it says your property management company's hiding $250,000 in their operations, and that's almost, I know why you put that up there because we have a mutual friend and client. But what's funny is that's just one example is there's $250,000 hiding in a single property management company and that's just going to go straight to the bottom line. And so if you are a business owner and you want to put money straight to the bottom line after the initial investment and the ROI is quick, fast, and easy, I think it's important. Reach out to Robert and talk to him about what it would look like to do an AI audit find out how you could simplify your operations, how you could put people in the right position to succeed, run your business more efficiently, keep your employees happier, and ultimately keep your clients happier and doing the things that they're really most gifted to do. And if you reach out to Robert and do that, I think you'd be really surprised and excited about what can be done. So thanks, Robert.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.